After 165 years, Smith & Wesson will be leaving Springfield, Massachusetts, where it was founded, and heading to Tennessee. Why? Gun laws. Now, it's kind of sad because I think this is going to be short-lived. I don't think in the long run they would have had to have moved because it seems young people are actually in favor of guns. And you can thank certain leftists like Vosh, for instance. You might not like his politics. You may disagree with him on principles and morals. But the dude is pro-gun and posts pictures of his guns, and he's a socialist. Young people who watch socialist channels like that are going to be exposed to a pro-gun message. Populists on the left and the right, pro-gun. Establishment shills, anti-gun. And that includes Republicans. Republicans who might actually pretend to support gun rights or the NRA, but in actuality will absolutely compromise on reasonable gun control. There should be no gun control in this country. All of the gun control should be repealed. We should have guaranteed rights to keep and bear arms of any kind. You know why? Because the Constitution says so. And you know what they try and play games saying, well, we interpret the will of the founders. Shut up. Okay, you want to talk about what it means to have free speech? There's some nuance there. Free speech is the right to express your opinion, not to instruct violence. That argument I understand, but still I think is a potential slippery slope. But okay, I understand that. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, that one's cut and dry. Well, what's an arm? No. We're talking about anything. People used to have privateers. They had their own cannons. They actually had, what was that full auto gun called? I can't remember. There has been volley guns, I think they're called volley guns, going back to like the 1300s, where you have a barrel with like 12, it's one mechanism with 12 barrels, and they're all ready to go, and you can light one fuse, and then they all go off. Now, some people say, Tim, that's not full auto. I think it's effectively full auto. Sure, maybe people want to make those distinctions. But over time, we have lost our right to keep and bear arms, and it's only getting worse. And these leftists, who I believe are actually in the minority on gun rights, they claim to be in the majority, but it's all in how you phrase the questions. They want to take away your guns. They will lie and say they don't want to take away your guns. They'll lie and say they've never taken away your guns. And quite literally, I tell you right here, there's like 10 guns I own that are banned in a bunch of different states. And some of them aren't even... the left would have you believe it's like a full auto machine gun or something. No, I'm talking about like, a short barreled rifle, for instance. I shouldn't say short barreled rifle. Those are NFA items. Those are banned across the board. I don't own any. But there could be like a pistol with a brace, and they're like, that's banned. Or there are certain other firearms, which are rifles, but maybe fire a smaller caliber and have a certain structure where they deem that to be an illegal assault weapon, which makes no sense. Let me just, for the people who don't understand guns, I'm not going to pretend to be the biggest gun expert, but I will tell you this. In any circumstance, I have an other firearm, it's called. It's not a rifle, it's not a pistol, but it's basically a rifle. And it's 9mm. And with it, I am extremely accurate. There is less recoil. It is all around safer. Yet, it's an illegal assault weapon in a bunch of blue states. But you can have a handgun. Okay, well, that I understand. However, I suck with a handgun. I am not proficient with these. I struggle to hit the targets. I am terrible. Rifle, long gun, easy. Yet some are banned, some are not. And it makes no sense. Let's read the news, and then I'm going to show you the good news. Millennials are buying guns. This authoritarian sentiment ain't going to fly. From WWLP Smith & Wesson headquarters leaving Springfield, moving to Tennessee. Firearms manufacturer Smith & Wesson announced Thursday they will be moving their headquarters and a large amount of their operations to Merrillville, Tennessee in 2023. Quote, "This has been an extremely difficult and emotional decision for us, but after an exhaustive and thorough analysis for the continued health and strength of our iconic company, we feel that we have been left with no other alternative," said Mark Smith, President and Chief Executive Officer of Smith & Wesson. I wonder if he is a descendant or just a guy named Smith. Smith said recent proposed legislation in Massachusetts would prevent the company from manufacturing certain firearms in the Commonwealth, which is more than 60% of their revenue. Quote, "These bills would prevent Smith & Wesson from manufacturing firearms that are legal in almost every state in America and that are safely used by tens of millions of law-abiding citizens every day, exercising their constitutional Second Amendment rights, protecting themselves and their families, and enjoying the shooting sports. While we are hopeful that this arbitrary and damaging legislation will be defeated in this session, these products made up over 60% of our revenue last year, and the unfortunate likelihood that such restrictions would be raised again led to a review of the best path forward for Smith & Wesson, said Smith. The Springfield location will remain operational, but will be reconfigured. Several manufacturing operations will remain in Springfield, including forging, machining, metal finishing, and assembling revolvers. Smith & Wesson will still have more than 1,000 employees in the state. The company expects roughly 750 jobs will be relocated from Springfield, Connecticut, and Missouri to Maryville, Tennessee. The company says they will also close facilities in Connecticut and Missouri when they make the move in 2023. Smith & Wesson has been based in Springfield since 1852. That's sad. It's really, really sad to hear. Our institutions are crumbling. Our traditions are being erased. And sometimes it makes sense. Not every tradition should be upheld just because it's the way things are done. But this is a company that produces a technology, weapons technology, and they advance that technology. And there are Luddites and paranoid, delusional individuals who would take away your rights. The problem I see with firearms is not the firearms themselves. Everybody's got a car. The left says, yeah, well, you need a license and registration and insurance to drive a car. And I'm like, and you don't have a constitutional right to have the car. You want to argue that you shouldn't have a constitutional right to have a gun? That's fine. Just call a convention of states or get your constitutional amendment passed. If the Constitution said the right to keep and bear vehicles and drive them was, shall not be infringed, I'd say you can't force people to do anything because it is enshrined in the Constitution as a guaranteed right. That being said, transportation, I do believe, it's not a right. Freedom of movement is, but the right to defend yourself effectively is. Now, there are certain questions about what that means. Driving is a privilege. For a lot of people, it's a necessity in this modern day and age. A weapon, in order to defend yourself, you will need modern technology to defend yourself. In order to defend yourself effectively, you need to keep and bear weapons of technological modernity, I suppose. Meaning, if somebody else can easily access these weapons, how do you defend yourself against them unless you have equal or comparable weapons? In which case, I certainly see this as the right to self-defense. Driving a vehicle, well, you can get a bike. They're different. They are absolutely different. So I think there should be no restrictions on gun ownership. I think people should be getting guns at young ages, but I think there should be training. We used to do it. We used to have high school shooting club. And then they decided you don't deserve the right to defend yourself. Well, look, you want to live in New York or Massachusetts and not have a right to defend yourself? And when someone breaks into your home, they sue you because they broke their hand on the glass as they broke in? Fine. Live in that place. What a stupid way to live. Mayor Sarno released a statement. President and CEO Mark Smith had reached out to me to inform of Smith & Wesson's decision to relocate 550 Springfield-based jobs to their Tennessee manufacturing facility. This is devastating news to the 550 employees and their families who will be losing their jobs. My number one priority will be to assist these employees and their families in any way we possibly can. I'll be working with my staff and coordinating with state officials to discuss ways in which we can offer workforce placement, assistance, and retraining aspects to assist every one of these employees and their families. In addition, we will continue to work with Smith & Wesson to retain the 1,000 remaining jobs here in Springfield. In my discussion with President and CEO Mark Smith, he has assured me that their goal is to keep these remaining 1,000 jobs here in Springfield. I will continue to work with them in any way possible to attain that goal. You know what? Fine. Good. Let their economy take a hit. If you want to live in these states, I'll just say this. If you live in a state that bans guns, that is overwhelmingly crackpot authoritarian, and you work in a gun factory, this should not surprise you. I'm sorry. I certainly empathize with those that are losing their jobs, but let me just state, you need to have personal responsibility, to have thought about what was happening in your state. And the same is true for everyone else. If you live in a blue state and you work in the gun industry, you are in the wrong business, my friends. I get it. You want to provide people the right to defend themselves. You want to provide that service, and I can respect that. But if you think you will leave this unscathed, you are incorrect. You're a gun shop in New Jersey. Don't be surprised when one day you no longer have a job. Overnight, legislation passes. And all of a sudden, half your inventory is illegal and you can't sell it. It's a ridiculous industry to be in a blue state. Go to a red state. Think about it this way. They want to ban semi-automatic weapons. The Democrats have proposed banning semi-auto because they don't know what they're talking about. Okay, that's basically every single gun you have. So you're a gun shop. You invest $20,000 in your inventory. You want to sell it to make a profit so that you can support the people who work there and can provide this, this service to your community. And then one day there's a bang, bang, bang. They have passed the new law. It is unlawful to keep, possess, or transfer or sell semi-automatic weapons. All of a sudden, your store is full of stuff you can't sell. Now, this kind of thing can happen at supermarkets. You could be carrying, some kind of salami and it gets recalled and all of a sudden you're like, ugh, what do we do? And then you'll have to, reconcile that somehow. Maybe get a refund from the company that's doing the recall. Maybe it's the FDA. Maybe you're out of luck. It happens. I mean, that's regulation, okay? But to have the government, to be in a blue state and to know they will ban everything you sell given the opportunity. There's only so much I can say to these employees who are working at a company where they're in a state where they knew or they should have known this is what's going to happen. Senator Eric Lesser said, regardless of one's personal views on gun control, this move is bad news for the hundreds of families who will lose stable, well-paying jobs. Looking forward, I've already begun the conversation with relevant public and private sector leaders about suitable reuse of space and ways to assist the 550 impacted employees through training, job placement, etc. We understand. Now, the sad thing is, this may actually be arbitrary and temporary. I'm going to bet on guns. I'll tell you why. Take a look at these articles. From NPR, 2018. Millennials are no more liberal on gun control than elders, polls show. How about this one from Politico magazine? Are millennials moving right on guns? This one's from 2017. And then we have this from the National Interest, from nationalinterest.org. The trend has flipped. Millennials are actually buying guns. Now, hold on there a minute. You may have seen a bunch of articles saying millennials are in favor of gun control. You may have seen people like David Hogg, who's like, we're the future, man. We're going to take away everyone's rights because that's what people want. They want to live under a boot and they all high five each other. Woohoo! No, it's not true. At least I can say in my opinion. When you ask someone questions that are loaded, you might get the answer you're looking for. Do you think there should be some reasonable restrictions on to prevent unwell people and murderers from getting guns and hurting people? And people are going to be like, well, yeah, of course. But what does that mean? Reasonable restrictions. Does it mean like you do a mental health check or a background check? Yeah, those exist. Okay. And you said yes. Then the poll comes out and says 78% of millennials favor some form of gun control. Well, yeah, we already have the NICS background check. Some people think it's bad. And I don't know if it's every state, but I know in West Virginia, if you have a concealed carry permit, you're able to just walk in and buy the gun because that concealed carry is a background check. But we have background checks. Sometimes they can take 5 days. I know a ton of people have tried to buy a gun. They put you on a waiting list. You get delayed. Those things are already in place. That's why you'll see people saying they're in favor of this stuff. I went to the March for Our Lives in D.C. a few years ago, and I would say 9 out of 10 people I talked to had no idea what was going on. They had signs saying assault rifles should be banned, and I'm like, assault rifles are already heavily restricted and hard to buy. Also, they're extremely expensive and can't be manufactured. And people would be like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, you can't actually buy a new one. I mean, you can buy used ones because they banned the production. I had people be like, oh, I didn't know. Because the Democrats say assault weapon. Yeah. A Ruger 1022 with a scary looking pistol grip. That's an assault weapon, apparently. Most people don't understand this. I think younger people are starting to pay attention. From National Interest. Young people have been quite vocal about gun control in recent years, driven by a number of high-profile mass shootings in schools. A 2018 NBC News story even suggested that younger Americans weren't all that into guns, except those seen in first-person games. However, those games and a wave of podcasts, YouTube channels, and social media related to guns in games may have been a gateway for the younger crowd. And there has been a slow increase in gun sales to millennials. Then the pandemic came last year. And and this is from, mind you, this is from this year. It was younger Americans, along with minorities and women, that began to truly express their Second Amendment rights like never before. Many were first-time buyers, but that is about all they had in common. These new gun owners came from all political spectrums. The old notion that most gun owners were old white guys simply isn't true. Just as America continues to evolve politically, with unions increasingly supporting and endorsing conservative causes, many gun owners now identify as independent, Democrat, and even liberals. Yes, my friends, Tim Pool, the politically independent, mixed-race high school dropout, is a gun owner and staunch proponent of the Second Amendment. And boy, when I say I have guns, let me just say, I got a lot of guns. I got a lot. Because I'm allowed to. And because I like them. And because I want to have them. And because the Constitution says, F you, I won't do what you tell me. So I'm allowed to have it. I take them very seriously. They're well protected. They're locked up in safes, separated from ammo. I take safety and security extremely seriously, and I will not let anyone go anywhere near them unless they can tell me the rules. They know about gun safety, and then once I've confirmed this, you take the weapon, you clear it, you lock the hammer back or whatever, inspect it, let them have it. When it comes to going to the range or anything like that, I don't play around. I've had air rifles, air compression rifles, break action, and people play stupid games. I'll tell you this. I have a flintlock pistol that was that Luke Rudkowski of We Are Change got me for my birthday. Thank you, Luke. It's a wonderful gift. It's amazing. It's got no flint in it. It's never been fired and probably never will be. I mean, maybe we'll go to a range at some point. And this is I think this is really good to have because you can then see if someone is capable of handling a weapon by giving them something they would not be capable of firing because, well, like I said, there's no flint, there's no powder, there's no ball, there's no wadding, there's nothing they can put in it. And if they tried to, if they don't know how to handle a weapon, I really doubt they'd be able to handle a flintlock pistol. But the one thing I tell them always, do you know the rules? And they go, yes. Okay. So don't point at anybody. Assume it is loaded. Right. Finger off the trigger. All of these things. And what do most people do when I take it? And we're on the top floor. So top floor, you point it up. Bottom floor, you point it down. And I hand it to them. They immediately just and spike everybody. And I'm like, you see, that is why you want to make sure you don't hand people loaded weapons. You take safety seriously. There's a video out of a shooting range where it's like this guy is joking around and he points the weapon at his friend and the instructor runs up, grabs him, pins him down, takes the gun, clears it, takes the magazine out, clears it, puts it down, hammer back, and then grabs both guys and kicks them out. Because it's not a game. And people, they'll say, oh yeah, I'll be fine. And it's just like, dude, if I give you a flintlock pistol and tell you do not point it at anybody and you do, first thing, I am really, really impressed with people. I got to be honest. So we were doing flooring. We're working on the new studio, and there's a sticker that says "Do not step." And I look down and say, "Don't step on that." And they go, "Okay," and then they step on it, and I'm like, I just don't understand. And I'll tell you what. I bring that up to say, even though I take it seriously, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I am not saying this to be like people are dumb and can't be trusted. No, I'm saying recognize that people are dumb and sometimes you can't trust them, but that doesn't change the fact they have rights. But anyway, I should read some of this. Check this out. Quote, today's gun owner looks a lot less like me and a whole lot more like America. The NSSF's public affairs director, Mark Oliva, who is white, told NPR in April. First-time gun buyers largely flock to semi-automatic handguns, which outpace second most purchased firearm shotguns by a 2-to-1 margin. I like shotguns, but I'm not a big fan. You know what? I will say this. I got a 410 break action. Ridiculously simple. Like it's basically just a metal tube. And we got 410 slugs. It is so much fun shooting targets with the 410 with slugs. You shoot it and then you pop it open and it ejects the shell. People have a good time with it. Extremely low recoil, extremely easy to learn with. Still want to take it extremely seriously. But we always try, when we're going to the range, and I'm not an instructor, but when we've had people who are, I'm always like, look, 12 gauge, I don't think we're going to hand the 12 gauge off to someone who's never fired a weapon before, because you better be ready for that one, especially buckshot or something like that. It's fun. It is. But this is the thing. We are seeing young people outright embracing weapons. We are seeing progressives, socialists, and the left embracing weapons, pushing back on the establishment. And you know what that says? People like David Hogg, some of the worst people, really, because he has no cause. He has no cause. It's a losing issue, and it's always been. There was a Union Democrat yelling at Biden saying, "You're going to take away my guns?" Union Democrat. Just because people in New York don't want guns doesn't mean people in West Virginia or even suburban Philadelphia should have theirs taken away. No, people like guns. Does that mean there will be problems? Yes. Does that mean there will be accidents? Does that mean that there's a risk? Yes, there is. Freedom comes with risks. I will not give all of the leverage to the state or to criminals. Regular people deserve a right to keep and bear arms. Seeing Smith & Wesson leave is sad. I will tell you that right now. They're keeping some, presence there, but their headquarters are moving. It's sad. It really is. Times change. Not every tradition is a good tradition. But what's sad is that I think we're winning on this front. And a lot of people say Tim's pessimistic. Look, if the republic has fallen and the states break apart, all the federal laws have no longer apply to you. So you can keep and bear arms. You can buy your tank. You can do whatever you want in your state. I mean, that sounds like good things, actually. I mean, think about it. If you live in Tennessee, you want to live by Tennessee's rules. If you live in New York, you want to live by New York's rules. So the federal government breaking apart or losing power over that state, how is that bad for anybody who lives in those states that likes what they do? I think it's bad in the long run with China. But at the very least, there is some light at the end of that tunnel. As much as I would prefer it not to happen. A lot of people tell me like peaceful divorce, and I'm like, I think we're headed towards severe conflict. And then you get these clickbait garbage channels that are like, Tim wants a civil war. And I'm like, how many times do I have to say that would be a bad thing for all of us? Maybe a peaceful divorce, but I still think it leaves China, to take over, which is bad. But if we're headed towards violence, maybe peaceful divorce is the best. Not that I want it. In fact, absolutely not. That would be terrible. In the end, one of the most important things you can do is go to a range, learn all the rules, take some courses, get a good instructor, and know how guns work, period. Why? Sometimes wild animals attack. I mean, that's it. Sometimes criminals attack. I'm not even so worried about people. I live in the middle of nowhere. There are bear sightings out here. Now, how do you deal with bear? A lot of people comment, say, Tim, don't do this, don't do that. Look, we have a lot of predators. We have foxes. We have chickens to protect. And I don't want to harm anything, okay? But if you are facing down something that could potentially be rabid, for instance, and you're in your yard, what do? Well, you might want to have some kind of weapon to protect yourself, even if it's a stick, right? But if there's a wild animal, man, you do not want to get bit by a wild animal or a bat or whatever. You'll need to protect yourself. And out in West Virginia, if you've got a wild animal coming at you, I hope you got some way to protect yourself, because you get bit, you're going to be in the hospital with those rabies shots. And hopefully that's all you get. And if it's a bear, I'll tell you this. I'm not going to go ahead and pretend that, first of all, never engage, unless I'm not going to give you the rules on bears. Okay. I think black bears you fight, whatever. If you're in your house and you see a bear, just keep the door closed, stay safe. But if you're outside and a bear is coming, you're probably going to hope you have a gun, even if it's something that's not particularly effective against a bear, because at the very least you can do something other than nothing. The point is, it's not always about war or conflict or burglaries or sports. Sometimes it's just defense, and sometimes it's animals. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.